In the thick of the wedding season and busy time for photographers, we are joined by Victoria DeMartini. She is a professional photographer here today to talk to us all about some of the latest trends in wedding photography. Welcome to the show.
Thanks. Great to be here.
You know, we were just talking about the fact that this is, right now, people are so into photography at all stages of their lives, weddings and children. It's quite competitive out there.
Absolutely. I mean, it's an industry that's not regulated, so anybody can just hang out a shingle and call themselves a photographer. So, you know, it makes it pretty easy to get in.
Yeah. And you're looking for a photographer, not a photographer.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's unfortunately one of those trends is that now it's become very, very easy for people to steal the work of other photographers and claim it as their own, create a website and a Facebook page and take those images and say that they're theirs, and as somebody who's out shopping looking for a photographer, how would you know?
So before we get to the trends, let's talk about some of the red flags, warning signs that this is not a real photographer.
Well, I think the first thing is when you're actually taking the time to meet with a photographer, presumably you've already looked at their portfolio on their website or their blog. So I think you have to meet with them and ask about the photos. How did they take them? Where did they take them? Ask if you can see the full wedding. Typically, if you're going to steal someone's photos, you'll only have access to a couple that have been posted online, so you won't be able to produce a whole wedding if it's not yours.
Right. And you're also talking about references, which I hadn't thought of.
Oh, for sure. I mean, photography is an expensive thing for a wedding, so why wouldn't you check references just like you would for anyone else? You know, ask to speak to clients that have worked with the photographer before.
Also ask about their business practices, you say?
Oh, for sure. I mean, if somebody's a professional, they'll have a place of business, they'll have a website, they'll have tax numbers. Yes, we do collect tax. They'll have a contract for you to sign, and the contract will cover everything from the price you pay to when you'll actually receive your photos. So I think that's super important.
All right. So once you've found that photographer, there are... There are some awesome new trends. Let's talk about something called the first look. Tell me what that's all about.
Oh, that is one of my favorite moments of any wedding, and I think for a lot of couples it's also their favorite moment is when the bride and groom see each other for the first time. Normally it happens at the top of the aisle. The bride is there, the groom is waiting, you walk down the aisle and boom, it's over because the ceremony starts. So something that is now becoming more popular, even with traditional couples, is to see each other before the ceremony. I love Candace and David. They did a first look. This is another couple who did a first look with me. And really, it just gives them the opportunity to have like a little bit of an oasis in the midst of a chaotic wedding day.
But then you actually capture the reactions. You capture his reaction and her reaction when they see each other.
Absolutely. So we always do a first look with two photographers, so you get both perspectives, and they really get to enjoy that moment in private. They don't have to hide their emotions because their boss is sitting in the ceremony location and watching, and they get to savor it for as long as they want.
That's beautiful. What about, you know, something that is controversial, the idea of an unplugged wedding? What's that about?
An unplugged wedding is where a couple asks people not to take photographs during the wedding. And that's because, you know, as a photographer, I notice when the bride is walking down the aisle, you'll often see hundreds of phones and iPhone and iPads and stuff like that, people taking pictures. So the couples really want their guests to be present in the moment and enjoy the experience with them as opposed to being stuck behind a camera.
And, you know, at a lot of weddings recently that I've been to, within seconds, the pictures are up on Instagram. And what if, as the bride, you don't find that to be a flattering photo of yourself, but yet the rest of the world is seeing you?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I don't know that you really need to have everything broadcast instantaneously on Instagram and Facebook. And sometimes it's nice to build the anticipation and wait a few days for the photographer who was hired to capture the event to have the photos ready for you.
Tell us about Brady Bunch style pictures.
Well, we all remember the Brady Bunch in the little box and everybody's looking at each other. I think that is basically something where you celebrate not just the bride, but also the people that she's surrounded herself with in the bridal party.
Oh, that's sweet.
So you do some fun pictures. Sometimes they can be more formal, and then you can create a cool collage like this to put in their album.
And like you mentioned, for bridesmaids, it's a very expensive thing to take part in a wedding, so it's nice to give something back.
Yeah.
Next, we have a video that's going to display what's known as a slow motion booth. What's that all about?
Well, we've all seen the typical photo booth that you have at a wedding where you get props and stuff and you stand in front of a backdrop and take photos.
Right.
This is something that was created by Superfly Saves Tokyo. I think that's the right name.
What is this?
And it's actually the same kind of concept, but they film it with a high-speed camera and they slow it down. So you get to see all the action in slow motion, and it's super, super fun.
Gives everybody a good laugh. What about something called stop motion wedding photo albums? That's another video.
Well, stop motion is sort of an animation technique where you take inanimate objects and you photograph it and then you move it and then you photograph it again. As you can see here, what they're doing on the table. It's super, super cool. It looks really interesting. I know for sure there's at least one company in Montreal that does offer this.
How unique.
It's really interesting. And it takes the right couple to want to do something like this, though, because it takes a lot of work to set that up and to be able to photograph that.
It would be really cool to see, you know, the big reception hall and the party, and to see how that would work with the slow-mo. That was cool.
Absolutely.
And the final trend, which I think is something quite charming, is the winter wedding.
Oh, that's what I love, because, you know, it's really hot in Montreal in the summer.
Really?
Just a little. So it's really beautiful. I mean, lately I've been getting a lot of requests for winter weddings. This is a couple actually in Labrador that got married on New Year's Eve.
Oh my God.
And it's just really romantic. You get a completely different look.
Don't have to worry about the makeup sweating off.
No, and a wedding dress is heavy and it's hot. It's hot under all those layers. So, you know, it's beautiful. I mean, look at that. That's at the Willows out in Hudson. With two of my favorite clients, Tom and JD. Got to give them a shout out because I love them.
That is awesome. Victoria DeMartini, professional photographer, thanks very much.
Thank you so much.
For sharing all of these very interesting tips. I'm sure there's a lot of brides out there who are thinking,
Call me.
Thanks.